Please welcome David Behen, Chief Information Officer at LazyBoy, and panelists for Global Information Sharing to Disarm Cybercriminals.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to talk. We have a very esteemed panel with us today. They were asking, should I stand or sit? And I said, well, if the chairs aren't LazyBoy, I'm standing. So clearly, I'm standing. Anyway, just kidding. We have a great panel here today. We're going to jump right into it. I'm going to ask each one. I'm going to take 10 seconds to introduce themselves. We're going to start with Camille.
Hello, everyone. My name is Camille Stewart. I'm the Global Head of Product Security Strategy at Google and have worked all over the public and private sectors on security.
Hi, Alaina Clark. I'm the Assistant Director for Stakeholder Engagement with CSIA, and it is so nice to be back with people because this is the priority that I have is working with our private sector and state and local partners. So thanks for having me here today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Zabierek. I am the Executive Director of the Cyber Project at the Harvard Kennedy School's Belfer Center. Long career in military, government, private sector, and now academia. So I'm trying to represent all the sectors.
Hi, Rich Bache. I'm Senior Vice President, Global Chief Information Security Officer at AIG. Had the opportunity of been doing information security at the national security level with the government, the vendor level, McAfee, Network Associates, big consulting, Deloitte. And it's my third time being a Chief Information Security Officer.
So welcome. This is going to be a great conversation. Also, before we start, if you have a burning question that you want to ask the panel while we're talking, please raise your hand. We will get the crowd engaged early and often. How's that? All right. Lisa, put your hand down, or don't put your hand down. Okay, so information sharing. It's, we all have public and private sector backgrounds. Information sharing has been something that we've been talking about forever. And so it's a really important topic. And how are we going to get better at it? And are we getting better at it? And that's sort of the conversation today. Rich, I'm going to start with you, though. There have been a number of large cybersecurity threats and attacks this year, as we all know. In general, do you think the cybersecurity industry is doing a good job of learning from these incidents?
I do think there's other opportunity, but let's break it down. So first off, thank you to the media, right, for helping us educate the globe on the importance and all the different incidents, so that helps. Our current administration is doing a great job of getting out in front and launching initiatives and keeping these things front and center, in particular, obviously, ransomware. And third, then we have also DHS, within DHS, the CISO organization, which has really done a good job of furthering their communication, but also creating resource pages to help small and medium businesses and large enterprises on actions they need to take around ransomware and insider threat. And then you take it down to the vendors. So the vendors use these breaches and these informations to really home tune their roadmaps. Unfortunately, it's more reactive than proactive, but it still helps strengthen the industry because a lot of the exploits that we see in organizations that fall victim are the same types of things. So defense in depth with the various vendor products, can help. And then ultimately, organizations are responding to this. If you look at some of the statistics lately as it relates to the expenditure expected, this coming year for information security, most organizations are predicting, high single growth and also some double-digit growth to their cybersecurity budgets, which are all being driven by, obviously, all the breaches that are coming out. And then specifically to how the industry has been responding to it, DHS CISA, again, has put up many different tools. But in addition to that, the National Infrastructure Advisory Council put out a concept called the Critical Infrastructure Command Center, which was really focused on taking public-private information sharing and operationalizing it, really pushing to use innovation and pushing innovation out there because although we're learning and we're educating and we're providing awareness, what the industry actually needs is scripts and tools because large enterprises have budgets and people and skills. The small to medium business and smaller echelon enterprises don't. So I'd hope we could see more public-private partnership of innovation that's coming out that helps when preferably before an issue, but post-issue, and hoping that some of the work that DHS is doing, in particular with the JCDC, Joint Cyber Defense Center, hopefully will kind of materialize that and begin to push out some of that innovation in those tools.
Yeah, I'd love to add something too on that. You know, just taking a step further, I think we could do a much better job at it, because right now we don't have those mandatory reporting requirements. And so we don't have an accurate picture of the landscape. We don't know exactly what's going on all over the place. So, you know, implementing that, I think, would go a long way to helping us to learn from these incidents. And then also, too, I'll do a quick plug. One of my fellows, Rob Kanaki, is working on the Cyber Lessons Learned project. So I think that's going to be even more exciting there.
Thank you. Camille, I'm going to shift to you. So how can a partnership between government, education, and business elevate our cyber response tactics as a whole?
So I'm going to pull the thread on the last question too. One of the things that I think we need to invest more in is making sure that individuals are a part of this information sharing work that we're doing as well, and connecting individuals to these national security and large cybersecurity outcomes. This is an opportunity for us to make sure that people actually understand what's going on, right? Yes, the media is covering it, but have they talked about how it is showing up very directly in their lives? That ransomware attack at your school, did the connection get made about exactly what that meant for the lives of the students, for the parents, and how they could go about their day? And so I think that's an opportunity for us to pull all of that together. So information sharing between public sector, private sector, academia is important, because each one gets a different piece of the puzzle. Academia can deep dive on what's happening and strategically think into the future in ways that you might not get the room to do at a company or in government. Government gets access to certain information that the private sector doesn't, and the private sector is on the front lines of much of this work. And the coming together of all those sources of information, those insights, those skill sets, new technology and capabilities is ripe for opportunity, particularly when it feels collaborative and is trust informed and centers on people. People are at the center of this, right? Like, people are the malicious actors, and people are also the users we seek to protect, and the operators. And so information sharing has the opportunity to really pull together the strengths of each sector so that we can make better strides towards securing our society.
So I'm going to elaborate a little bit on that. Who in your mind, and anyone can answer this question too, who in your mind, though, should lead that conversation? Because we might have a lot of people just kind of communicating, but are they communicating together? And I love your idea, government, education, and business working together and making it really a personal experience, but who should be leading it?
So one of the things that I like about the JCDC that Rich just mentioned is that it doesn't seem to be intended to be government-led or private sector-led or academia-led. They are co-leading this effort, right? It brings together the interagency, which I think is really important to bring together all the players across government. It's bringing together the private sector. And that conversation where there is joint ownership and strategy that is co-developed, I think is a ripe opportunity for progress, because quite frankly, which is why I think you're asking this question, it's been really hard to have an entity take the lead and to really drive this forward because of some of the trust silos that we've had traditionally. And so this co-ownership, I think, has the opportunity to really drive us forward.
So Dave, I like to say history repeats itself, and sometimes in cyber we tend to think it's so unique, but to actually move the ball forward, using things we've done in the past. So I'll show my age a little bit here. Those of you might remember the public broadcast of the Indian with the tear showing garbage rolling through the streets, and then go into the 70s. You had Arnold Schwarzenegger really being a spokesperson for fitness. Right, so to answer your question regarding ownership, I'm not sure what it is. Maybe some type of public broadcast system type of thing, or maybe you, David, could be the face of it. But I think it's important somehow to develop some type of cyber icon, right, to be that face, whether that be fictitious or not, because I think Camille says, is it really has to be a personal level. We've got to get our personal security and awareness up to the right level, since we are probably the weakest links in any enterprise.
Anyone else want to add to that one? No? Any questions from the audience yet? We're just going to wait until you have one. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so Alaina, let's go to you. And again, thinking about all those partnerships and things like that, and Camille really set up the JCDC. That was great. I love that. Let's start with by saying, what are the CISA's top priorities related to information sharing and cybersecurity right now with the new administration and everything? What are your priorities?
Sure. So the JCDC is, I would say the top priority. So the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, and thank you both for plugging it before I even got to say it myself. It is really focused on not information sharing, but information collaboration. And it's very unique. CISA's mission is to manage, to understand, manage, and reduce risk to cyber and physical critical infrastructure. And that's truly what the JCDC embodies. And it's bringing together federal partners and private sector partners to the table to plan, to prioritize, and to truly do that collective defense operations. And I think that's the key piece, is that defense operations together. And you have the unique federal talent and authorities at the table, with then the power of the private sector, and that truly helps to just have that common threat picture and common operating picture that we need. So we stood this up originally with internet service providers, cloud service providers, and cybersecurity companies, and we will definitely be looking to expand that as we focus on certain types of sprints and working across different sectors. So the one thing I would urge partners that are here in the room or listening is, if we haven't sat down with you yet to talk through the JCDC with you, please reach out so that we can get you up to speed, get you and your leadership at the table, so you can understand how you can then benefit from this cyber defense collaboration that we're doing. There was a great article in the New York Times this week. I talked to the board about it yesterday, and it really talked to what kind of happened over the past couple of months with ransomware, and just that power, again, of the private sector working with government, and how we were then able to reduce risk at scale. And that's really what we're trying to do with the JCDC. It's not just helping big companies, but it's really helping those small, medium businesses, state and local partners, international partners, to help reduce the risk against the threat actors. So this is one of our top priorities right now.
So Lazy Boy, right? How would we become involved in the JCDC? And I know you're talking about it might be out in the future a little bit, but not only in the JCDC, but how do companies become more involved in programs with DHS, like a Lazy Boy, a manufacturer, retailer, right?
Absolutely.
And some of the other programs that you guys are focused on as well.
So if you're already connected in with CISA and receiving different types of information sharing from us, you're probably already benefiting from it. You might not even know it.
I know it.
And again, I think this article that came out recently really highlighted how partners were benefiting from this larger effort. So you're probably already benefiting from it. So if you're not connected in with CISA and any of our just day-to-day information sharing programs, would recommend you do that, because then you will definitely be force multiplier in this JCDC effort.
That's great. No, I mean, I think it's, again, information sharing, but collaboration, government, education, and business all working together. I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience yet? I would like someone to have a question soon, please. Okay. Lauren, let's go to you. You have a tremendously interesting background. Congratulations on that. Through your personal experiences, how have you seen partnerships in the cybersecurity field make us stronger? And give us maybe a couple of examples of that.
So I'll just caveat this by saying a lot of my government and military experience was not cyber at all. And when I came to cyber, I just left government. I was doing counterterrorism work and deploying and all that. So came to Recorded Future, actually, a threat intelligence company, just brand new. Started as a sales engineer. But that was at a time when it was early 2016, late 2015, and I think the landscape we got to see was like really changing. I think a lot of companies were starting to think, oh, wow, this is something that we have to do, something that we have to invest in. I then moved over to start our public sector team. And so, really was able to, see firsthand, the benefits of partnership between, the private sector, where we're able to provide threat intelligence to entities in the public sector. And I think, when governments can really leverage expertise and especially technological solutions from the private sector, when we can, gain that scale, I think, that's when it's really helpful for governments, and then of course for private sector when you can help to leverage that policy-making apparatus, rule-making, resources, and that, weight behind, these initiatives in the government. I think there's a lot of, power there. If we can do this from a institutional perspective, right, not just ad hoc, and I think the JCDC really goes a long way to helping that. But I would say I would love to see state and local get a lot more love there, right? Because we talk a lot about the federal government and the private sector, and as we know, state and local doesn't have all the resources and the funding, or the, as much of that expertise there too. So I'd love to see more of a focus on that.
Yeah, as a former state CIO, a lot of the things are local, and so. Right. But the partnerships between the federal government and government education business has been really critical going forward. Are there other programs at Harvard that companies who are listening today could really gravitate to, or Harvard-like institutions? Do you know of any that would allow for us to be better partners as we think about this global information sharing thing we're all trying to do?
Sure. So at Harvard, there's a number of schools, right? So you have the Kennedy School, the Business School, the Law School, and I'm loath to admit this, but the Law School does have the Berkman Klein Center, and I say that because they have the domain cyber.harvard.edu, but they're great. Jonathan Zittrain, David O'Brien, et cetera. Where I would really love to see, more of that cyber focus is actually at the business school. There's a digital initiative led by David Homa, but, where so much, especially in the private sector, is focused on business and market incentives to, increase security. I'd love to see more of a focus there. But at the Kennedy School itself, where I work, we have the Cyber Project, and we have a number of other initiatives and centers, such as the Shorenstein Center, for instance, a lot of focus on like disinformation, misinformation. The Technology and Public Purpose Project, that's directly under Ash Carter, for instance. So definitely a number of places to plug in, I guess you can say, and collaborate.
Hey, Dave, I would like to take the opportunity, though, just because maybe people aren't aware. I think we have a crazy amount of opportunities for information sharing. So many states have fusion centers themselves where information sharing is going on. The industries, most of the critical infrastructure industries all have their own ISACs. So you have that going on. You have some industries doing even advanced stuff, looking at systemic risks, in particular like the ARC, which is power, energy, and finances. And then obviously you get at the level of the FBI has local sharing and regional sharing and distributions, and you get information that particular way. DHS has their sharing mechanisms, and then when you go broader than that, right? The UK has a sharing center, Australia has a sharing center. So a lot of our Five Eyes partners have actual intelligence sharing and cyber intelligence entities in place today. And from the state level, a lot of the states are using their National Guard to help out with a lot of that. So I think a big part of it, at least in some of the analysis we did when on the NIAC project, is when you lay out all those puzzle pieces, it's not a matter of not having enough sharing. There's probably too many mechanisms in place. So hopefully when the JCDC gets up and running, also it'll streamline some of that, because it gets kind of frustrating when you're getting information from 5 different elements, and sometimes the information is not the same, right? So I don't think we have a problem with the actual sharing. I think we have to streamline it and then put more action around it so that the small to medium businesses can actually do something, because there's nothing worse than getting some information and going, I have no idea what this is, nor how would I answer this question. So
If you don't mind, I'll just add, so one thing with CISA, we do have a field force, so we're not just located in DC. So we have cybersecurity advisors and physical security advisors that are in the backyards of small and medium businesses and our state and local partners, working with fusion centers. So really trying to help locally, because it is challenging when you're getting this information coming from DC and you're like, what does this actually mean? So we do have folks that are in the field that can help navigate the various tools, the resources, and the best places to plug in.
Yeah, and I think, Rich, to your point, there's a ton of sharing, and it is true. And I think some of the secrets, if you're not in government or if you haven't had a public sector background, you may not know all of that. And so there is a ton of opportunities there between government, education, and business. Like if you think about even states, there's a National Governance Association as well. There's a National Association of State CIOs. They're all sharing information around this. And so the work that's being done is great. It's how do we streamline it? How do we make sure we're getting it there? And it sounds like DHS is doing a great job doing that.
Yeah, I'd love to add, I mean, one of the things that the variety of avenues for information sharing has created is trust silos. So people are sharing in their industry bubble, they're sharing amongst the people that they know. And so one of the things that I hope JCDC does, and some of the other grassroots programs like Lauren and I share the mic in cyber, is to break down those trust silos, have people talking across industries, across fields, across backgrounds, across states, across, urban diversity, all of those things, because what scares me most is that we're sharing, but we're sharing in these silos, and that doesn't actually help us very much because we have so much to learn from our counterparts in other industries and other spaces.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty common, right? I mean, even like organizations like the National Cybersecurity Alliance. We have an organization, Lisa, thank you, that brings in different companies from public, private. Lazy Boy was never a member, right? But cybersecurity is such an important topic for everybody. Now we became a member, and so I think your point is there, spot on about we're all sharing. We're sharing with our manufacturing partners. We're sharing with our insurance partners. We need to start sharing better together. So that leads right to another question for all of you, actually, to answer this one. What can be done to achieve a better information exchange dynamic in the future? Camille, you set it up, so I'm going to start with you.
I mean, stop only talking to people who are doing the work that you're doing. You cannot only talk to other cloud service providers or only, other manufacturers. You've got to be talking across lines, as we're seeing with these rampant ransomware attacks and indiscriminate supply chain attacks. The attacks that are happening in one place are happening to us all, and we can learn so much from each other and how each other rebounds and the resilience efforts that we've got. So I want us to just open up the channels that are already there.
All right, Camille, let's stay with that for a second. Are there any really good examples, and that's to everybody, any really good examples of that happening that you guys can think of right now?
I think the JCDC has the opportunity to be that. We're going to see it continue to evolve. I mean, I think Share the Mic in Cyber is a great opportunity at an individual level to connect new communities and new people. I think that there are some efforts out of universities like Harvard to kind of bring people together across different topic areas, which I think is an interesting way to think about it as well. But it has to be more pervasive than that, right? Because then that still creates a silo around we're all IR professionals, or we're all, looking at threat intelligence. So we've got to get a little more creative.
I would say from CISA's perspective, this is why there's an entire division focused on stakeholders. It's not stakeholders with one particular background or another. It's also why, from a field perspective, everybody is now together and reporting up through similar chains of command. So we're trying to look at this from a holistic perspective, and not just you have a cyber background, you have a physical background, or emergency communications. So trying to look across disciplinary, look at grassroots efforts as well, not just the normal associations or groups that we might be working with, but where else can we get this out there from a grassroots perspective as well?
Yeah, and if it was easy, they wouldn't need us, right?
Yeah.
This is a difficult topic. It's hard.
Yep.
So, David, I wrote a whole paper on this.
He's going to talk about her dissertation.
I gotta catch a plane.
But I'll just distill it down to three things that we observed when we were doing our research, and we had started back in November of 2019 on this. But it really, when I started this, I took my experience, from the intelligence community, from the counterterrorism work, and I was thinking, what can we do? So first, structures. Policies and structures, I think, are really key to getting this to happen, systemically, right, across all sectors and on a regular basis, not just ad hoc. So that team of teams approach. So again, counterterrorism, sorry. Sitting people together, as Camille said, building those trust bridges, getting people out of their silos, getting people to talk across sectors. Right now, a lot of people out in private sector, they don't know who to go to or what will happen if they go to someone, say maybe the FBI or something. They just, getting that kind of more regular interaction. And within that, there's sort of that culture shift. How can we get to, where we are now, which is more like siloed, to more of a trust is the norm kind of posture. 2, there's so much data out there in countless networks. It's all siloed. We need to be able to get it all together. We need to collect it. We need to process it so that is shareable. And I'll quote General Alexander from IronNet, but at speed and at scale, right? Apply analytics on it so we can start to triage and understand what's going on across sectors, have that common operational picture. And then really figure out the policies and the laws needed to facilitate better exchange, right? So making it easier, trying to knock out some of that paperwork, the mandatory reporting requirements, breach notifications, things like that. But above all, getting people and information out of those silos, as Camille was saying.
So first off, I always say, stay calm, cyber on, right? Everything's going to be okay. Unfortunately, a large portion of the information sharing that's going on is informational. It's not actionable. So, to where we can get better at is making sure that when the information is being crafted that's going to be shared, playing it back, right? So as a CISO, as you can imagine, there's more than enough media stories that come across and board members who read something about something, they ask you about it. And it always comes, the first question always is, so what? Like, what does it mean? Great, it's informational. But I would say, right today, we have a lot of information sharing that's going on, but it falls to deaf ears because there's no action tagged to it like there should be in some instances. I mean, it's great we keep talking about all the ransomware actors, right? But the real action is okay, is there some type of TTP or IOC I should be incorporating to discover these individuals and do different things with? So I would say an opportunity for us with our information sharing is the so what piece of the information when it goes out.
Yeah, that's great. Any questions? Yes.
I'll help you out.
There you go.
All right. Live example, SolarWinds. Good example, bad example. What do we think about information sharing?
From my perspective, trending in the right direction. Now, I will say that's caveat depending on what information streams you had access to for it. But what I liked about what I observed from the SolarWinds standpoint was when the information started being shared. We won't talk about the timeliness. We'll just say when it started being shared, at least the streams that I was on, the conversations that I are on, were very much around. This is how you find it. This is what you can do, and this is the importance of it. So it was good from that standpoint. But there's also opportunity there, right? Because the real question is people want to know is, do I keep SolarWinds in my environment or I don't? That's a very difficult conversation for government or anybody to say because of the risk. But what I did like was there was actually some action tagged to it once it started coming out.
So I'll just add from the government perspective, as soon as we were getting information, we were getting it out. And I've been with the department for about 15, 16 years now. This was the fastest I've seen information turn from our hands out to the public, to the private sector, to state and local governments. So that I thought was really impressive. And there will actually be a review of SolarWinds by the Cybersecurity Review Board once it is stood up. I think you probably are intimately familiar with it, with some of the work Rob's been doing. So there will be a review, and it will be with industry and government at the table together, going through that.
And I remember reading some articles, where there were a couple people who kind of caught some anomalous activity, and they're like, this seems weird, but they didn't necessarily know where to send it or what to do with it. So again, I think, the structures, right, and I think the review will help to look at what happened there and then start to improve, those processes going forward, kind of like a safety thing, right?
And I think that's a great, kind of supportive of what we talked about. So again, the intelligence today, there's a lot, but in the intelligence apparatus of the government, right, you also rate and review your intelligence. Like it's great, but if there's no action associated with it, so something that might be good from an industry standpoint or even a government standpoint is okay. So in the past year with the intelligence that we shared, how much of it was actionable, how much of it was informational, how did people rate the intelligence? What are our customers doing with the intelligence? Is it actionable? So, if there's a review of SolarWinds going on, I think in general, if you look at the entire, what has been communicated, we'll call it to the industries, what resulted as a result of the intelligence that has been shared?
Yeah, question.
Yeah, so I call it the privacy paradox, right? You have every state in our country, you have every country around the world that has different privacy laws. And under the federal government, they're more focused on information sharing. In fact, the Financial Crimes Act is going to make it mandatory. Aren't those things in conflict?
So I think that's a great question. That's something that we've thought a little bit about. And I'm actually working on a project right now that's looking at a national data privacy legislation. But I think there's a way that you can do it. So in our paper, we talk a lot about how right now the burden of minimization is on the private sector entity itself, right? And that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. But what if you had a solution that just automatically minimized that data, kind of stripped the personal stuff out? And I know I'm speaking very broadly here. I know there's a lot of nuance there. And that way, it could ensure that you're, doing it in a way that's safe and protecting that privacy. But I think it's an appropriate concern.
Leave it up to Harvard and Lauren to figure it out.
I'm going to add that to our list for our legislative concerns. So thank you.
Well, we're running out of time. So I'm going to ask one quick question, maybe a 10-second response from all of you. Is if you were the power of all people and you could do whatever you wanted to do to improve global information sharing, what would that one thing be? And we'll start with you, Camille.
Clarity of information. I think there are too many organizations that don't exactly know where to turn, how to plug in, what's at their disposal, and the benefits of being part of information sharing. So I would enable that both through legislation to clarify so folks know what the boundaries are and where they could run into trouble, but also just almost like a PR campaign so that folks know what DHS is doing and know how to plug into FBI. I mean, at a base level, we need more of that.
So I'm going to plug our Cyber Summit today because it's the power of partnership. So it is just coming to the table, connecting with CSIA. And my top priority is just getting out there, getting our name to partners, to individuals that don't know us, both domestically and internationally. And I know we've touched on international partners here, but they're so key to this as well. So just, that power of partnership and bringing folks to the table.
So I'm also writing a paper on this right now.
Oh boy.
Again, I think it still comes down to, the structures and the policies, right? And, I look at, there's a new thing out of the European Union called the Joint Cyber Unit, and it seems so comprehensive, right? You just have all these like directorates that do, X, Y, and Z connected to Europol, et cetera. I'd love to see a Five Eyes group like that. I know that they have the FELG, the Five Eyes Law Enforcement Group, but something broader, more operationalization of norms, communication, et cetera. So building out, again, those structures and ways for people to connect.
Big red easy button. So one place to go, whether you're inputting information or getting information. And then once you get through the easy button, the front door, then each of the agencies, state, local, federal, international, can then have their own types of things. But by far, people are most confused about where do I go to submit, where do I go to get. Collectively, we should just kind of outsource a portal, one portal, and then from there, everybody else can be on the inside of that portal, and that's where you go to, because I think that would solve a lot of our issues.
Mine would be starting an organization with the four of you running it, because as we think about global information sharing, it's difficult, it's hard, it's a team sport, but I can tell you, we should all feel pretty good about the leadership here that's sitting on this panel, because let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much for today. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break and we'll